Eugene put his finger on his lips and said, "It's a secret." Death Knight enraged and put demonic force into his claws, then rushed to Eugene. Eugene put his hand into cape and pull out Moonlight Sword, and they both ready to attack and counter-attack. Eugene stare him serious face and Death Knight sees him angrily with greeting his teeth. Eugene attack Death Knight demonic force claw with his Moon Knight Sword that deflect the Death Knight claws attack and disperse the demonic force. Death Knight back off fast while Eugene stand there with his sword. Death Knight puzzled that, what just happened? His claws made from demonic force just broke from the light. Eugene bending with Moonlight Sword. He thought he controlled his strength well enough, but after just one swing, he's out of breath and his vision is blurry, plus just maintaining the light of the sword is eating up his mana, and a smirk smile thinks, but the force is satisfying. He couldn't slay the Death Knight, but he got his demonic force. Death Knight staring him angrily while greeting his teeth. Then Death Knight moved his claws and approaching toward Eugene. Eugene thought, is he not using demonic force because of the sword? Looks like he is planning to fight with his fists instead. Then he said, that's not a very wise choice. Then Eugene bring out Wined's sword in another hand, then Death Knight jumps with great power that create cracks on the ground, then Death Knight jumps here and there like beast werewolf while Eugene stand calmly with sword in his both hand, then he sudden move and ready to attack Death Knight. Death Knight surprised to Eugene predict his move. Death Knight dodged it and back off fast. Eugene asked, scared? He hasn't even swung yet. Eugene swing his Windstorm sword Wined, Tempest, and a powerful storm attack release that create a tornado and engulf Death Knight and that hit cave ceiling. Eugene watching him with a serious face, then falling stone covered in aura that all stone hits the Death Knight while Death Knight falling and try to defend himself. Eugene raised his one leg and said, if only he was in a better state, he could have beaten you up to death. Then he hits the ground and with force there makes a pit and we saw white flame mana spread toward Death Knight. That aura punch hits Death Knight. He tried to avoid but failed, and a aura punch hits his hand and his armor shattered. He kneeled down and a aura punch above him, then he saw his broken armor. He shouted laudably, then he release his demonic force around him and make a big claw with it. Eugene with smiling face said, why didn't you use that skill earlier? It just goes to waste if you save it for later, you idiot. Then Death Knight saw a aura hand approaching him to capture. He slashed it, then Eugene came sudden and said, it already gone to waste. Then they both face each other and ready to attack, then Moonlight Sword fragment fly and reach demonic force claw and shine brightly. Eugene, though, since he has Moonlight Sword in his hand, he can control the fragment however he wish. Death Knight pause for while greeting his teeth. Eugene with Moonlight Sword ready to attack thought, a moment of pause, but that's enough for him. The Death Knight tried to move his hand but couldn't, then Eugene stab him in his core and that hit come through his back. Death Knight throw back to wall and fall to ground and his demonic force slowly disappears while on other side Eugene coughed lot of blood and thinks, he used as little power as possible, but it still used too much mana, but that is still better than using ignition though, and then the light on the Moonlight Sword is gone now that he is out of mana, he said, shitty ass sword. And put into his robe, the Death Knight laying on ground motionless. Eugene approached near him and think, he felt the core break, but since Death Knight body is still there, he guess it wasn't fully destroyed. Eugene greeted his teeth and thinks, what a shitty feeling, what an insult to the dead, that bitch dared to break into his grave and make a Death Knight out of his own body. Then he raise his Wined sword and thinks, he'll destroy this, then take ramen and escape. Then he pressed his sword down but sudden something happened, his body shaking, he can't move his body, it's like he tied down by some great invisible power. He smile and says, fuck, you're here. Then we saw a foot approaching toward Eugene. Then we saw Eugene freeze there and a lady with a skeleton staff, that she is Amelia Merwin stand behind Eugene. Eugene while freezing position thought, he can't move his body, all he can do right now is to move his mouth to speak, and he is sure that's possible because she allowed for it. Eugene said, can't we at least talk face to face? Amelia said, she is thinking about what she should do with you. She put her hand on chin and said, she do have quite a few ideas, but the one she like most is this. She start approaching toward Eugene and said, She'll drag you to the surface and throw you into the hot sand. Of course, she won't kill you, she'll make sure your is above the surface so that you can breathe. She'll force your eyes and mouth to stay open. Not long after, your eyes will crack into pieces, and your tongue will look like a dried up branch. After that, you'll become a scarecrow of desert. She'll destroy your legs and twist them into one string, and she'll stick thin metal pieces into each one of your finger. Then Eugene with shaking body moved his hand. He thought his body's moving on its own. Then Amelia appears behind Eugene, put his hand on his shoulder and said further, from the tips of your finger, into your arms, across your shoulders and your other hand's fingers, so that you can keep your arms spread open. Your eyes will already be broken, so you won't see what's happening. You'll be able to feel it though. It won't be so dull of a pain that you won't be able to feel it. Eugene said. He'd die of shock at that point. While standing slowly, she said, you won't die, she won't let you, and that's how you're gonna become a scarecrow of the desert, for a very long time, until she's tired of seeing you like that. Brew, even I feel the pain just by listening that explanation. Then she said, do you know who she is? While Eugene's face sweat dropping, he said, Amelia Merwin, and then she said with introduction way, yes, she's Amelia Merwin, the desert dungeon master, Blackthorn, that's her. She said, you broke my pet. She close by Eugene from behind and point finger and said, it was useless, but it was still mine. Torturing it, breaking it and killing it are all thing only she can do, as its owner. Eugene smiling said, what a gross pet, why didn't you at least bathe it? The rotting corpse smell is too. He even didn't complete his word. She hits him with her staff and Eugene coughed out blood and throw further on ground while his sword fell from his hand. Amelia says, only she can say things like that, as the owner, as Eugene on ground spit blood and while standing thinks, the spell's broken, can he kill her right now? No, he can't. Amelia is on a different level, he can't kill her if he were to use ignition. He grit his teeth and sweat on face thought, he didn't want to ask Balzac for a favor, but he has no choice. Then Eugene asked, you know who Balzac Ludwig is, right? She gazed him and said, she don't know why you're bringing up his name. Eugene with smiling face bring out black envelope and said, well, he know him, he wrote him a letter to give you if Eugene were to come across you. Then she pulled letter from his hand and holding her hand and looking into letter and said, you're speaking the truth, it's his seal, why did he write a letter for someone like you? Do you know what this letter means? Then Eugene says, Balzac said that if he had it on Eugene, Amelia wouldn't kill him, no matter what Eugene did. With a cold gaze, she said, it's a bit different, a long time ago, he helped her, as payment for that, she promised to do him one favor, that was a very valuable offer, even for Balzac, the ability to ask her, Amelia Merwin, for a favor, but for decades, he didn't ask me for anything. Then she burned the letter and said, do you get what she's trying to say? Since you have this, you can ask her for one favoring his stead, as long as she can do it. Eugene thinks so, then see. Then Amelia said, if you don't want to die, then ask her to spare you, then she won't kill you, but she is not just gonna let you go, she'll need to know why and how you got here and what you did here. Then Eugene said, he asked of you, Amelia Merwin, with a cocky smile said, kill yourself. Amelia said with smile that she sure said she would do it as long as she could. She said, you have two choices, if you don't want to talk then she'll respect it, and she'll kill you. And then she smiled and said, if you want to live, she'll let you live, but she'll need you to tell me everything she want to know. Eugene silently listening. She continue further, don't worry, she's not gonna make a cripple out of you, just because she's not killing you, she won't even torture you, there are many ways she can get you to talk. With a freaky smile she said, you're very interesting to her, how did you get in here, a place even the Sultan does not know about, only the desert mages here know this place, was there some parasite amongst them that was working with you? That's strange, that shouldn't happen. Eugene with a serious face thinks, what does he do? If he asks her to spare his life, she'll get him to confess no matter what. If she doesn't need to torture him, that must mean she's gonna use dark magic. Dark magic used by someone of her level will easily overpower his own will and get the answers out of him. He won't be able to stop it. She stepped ahead and said, "You sure are thinking for a long time." Should she interpret your hesitation as an answer? Eugene thought, should he use ignition and run away? No, if she used that paralysis spell on him again, he won't be able to do anything. She said, "She'll count to 3, she can't wait more than that." Then she start count. 1. Eugene greeting his teeth angrily and thought, what if he tell her he's a Lionheart? Would this shitty dark mage even respect that name? She smiled and count. 2. Eugene thinks further, should he just be honest? Tell her that he opened that door that even she couldn't open and found the moonlight sword. No way, she will spare his life, but she will definitely take the moonlight sword. Then as she going to count 3, something happened. She immediately turned back and see the Death Knight stand up. Eugene got pissed off and think, this disgusting feeling, could it be? Then sudden Amelia Merwin kneel down as respect. Then she asked, "What brings you here?" "Dear Demon King of Incarceration." At that time Eugene is still stand. Amelia is kneeling and a black dark demonic aura emitting from the standing Death Knight. Eugene angrily thinks that Demon King of Incarceration. Then Demon King said, "Eugene Lionheart, he saw you through the eyes of Balzac." Eugene silently listening. Then Demon King asked, "Did you come here to offer flower to your ancestors, friend?" He is sure, as Eugene can see, the owner of this grave is Hamel Dinas. He was called Hamel the Foolish, but he was definitely not foolish. He was especially strong and talented amongst dear Vermouth's friends, and he was Vermouth's best friend. Eugene that time cold and silently thought, what the hell is he saying? He angrily grit his teeth here about dear Vermouth. Then Demon King continue, he said, he understand why you'd think of me as an enemy, Vermouth, and he genuinely understood each other and built a real friendship, but to enforce something that happened 300 years ago on a descendant is silly. He respect the Lionheart out of the friendship he had with Vermouth, but he won't demand respect back from you, Eugene Lionheart. Demon King said, after Vermouth for 300 years, he has seen many a Lionheart, but he believe you are the one who is most like Vermouth. Amelia said, Lionheart, she see, silver hair, golden eyes, they are the traits of a Lionheart. Then she said to Demon King, she didn't expect to see you in such place like this and with a Death Knight as a vessel too. Demon King of Incarceration, how is she supposed to take this? The Demon King said, that's up to you. She asked, did you come to this place to defend that bad lion cub? King says, he's his friend's descendant. After all, she said, that's the reason why you're oppressing her freedom, which you are supposed to respect. King said, Vermouth is dead, but his bloodline has continue on, especially Eugene Lionheart. He can see Vermouth in him. He further said, Amelia Merwin, he endear and respect you, but not as much as Vermouth. She said, you respect someone who died 300 years ago, more than her, who's alive right now. As she trying to stand up, then a pressure put on her. She kneeled down again and said, Demon King of Incarceration. She angrily said, you. Then King said, your freedom cannot transcend your respect for me, Amelia Merwin. He respect your freedom to do whatever you wanted in Hamel's grave, but if you wish to harm Vermouth's descendant, he cannot accept that, at least not now. Eugene said, now. What do you mean? Amelia said, arrogant little kid, be polite to the Demon King. Then Demon King saw his palm and said, 300 years after Vermouth's promise, that is a long time for humans. For those 300 years, he believed he has shown enough generosity and respect to Vermouth's descendants. Then Amelia happy to hear that. Demon King continue that he accepted it as freedom that they did not show me the same kind of generosity and respect, but he cannot have people thinking it is an obligation that he's be nice to them. Then he clenched his fist and said, I, the Demon King of Incarceration, am a ruler of countless demons and Helmet's king. While Eugene thinks he's just talking, but his heart feels tight, and he can't even move. King continue that with freedom comes responsibility, freedom without responsibility is just self-indulgence. He spread his both arm and said, Vermouth's descendant, relay this to all Lionhearts, if you will not respect him, he will no longer respect you either, Eugene thought. A warning, what is the reason why you're saying this now, after 300 years of silence? Demon King said, your ancestor made a promise with freedom as payment and that promise is coming to an end. The will that Vermouth stopped is about to begin turning again. There will be a need for another promise one day. Who will be able to make a promise in Vermouth's stead and stop the will from turning? Eugene asked, what was the promise? Demon King silent for a while, then he laughed and says, you own not have the right to know, you're not Vermouth foolish lion, and laugh more. Eugene was shocked and suspect something, sweat runs on his face. Then Demon King said, your existence, your soul, it was all because of Vermouth's promise that you could be born 300 years later. Eugene with shocked face asked, what? Then Demon King looked Amelia and said, go back to your dungeon, she said, she still has question to ask that kid. King said, you will not get any answer from him. Amelia angrily said, nonsense, her pet is dead, and he easily opened a door, that she couldn't open no matter what she did. Then Demon King said, door, then there were some silence in the room, then sudden a pressure come, Demon King raise his hand, the door in front of him becoming dust instant, then in there Raman is unconscious. Demon King said, look, there is only Hamel's grave within, nothing happened here. Amelia silently making his face like she's going to weep.